What happened when a simple mistake led to real danger? I never thought one small mistake could put my entire life in danger. But that night, when I left my office late and forgot something so simple, everything spiraled into chaos. It was supposed to be routine. A Friday evening, just after 9 p.m., when the last of my coworkers had already left. I was gathering my things, annoyed that I'd stayed late again, when my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Don't forget about tomorrow. Mom's birthday dinner at 6. Don't mess this up. I smiled, shoved my laptop into my bag, and locked the office door behind me. What I didn't realize was that in my rush, I'd left my keycard on the desk. A stupid oversight. But that mistake changed everything. The parking garage was nearly empty, just rows of silent cars echoing under buzzing fluorescent lights. My heels clicked loudly as I made my way toward my sedan parked in the far corner. Every sound carried in that space. My own breathing, the rustle of my bag, the sharp metallic clang when I dropped my car keys. That's when I heard footsteps that weren't mine. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, the late-night quiet playing tricks on me. But then they quickened, deliberate, heavy, closing the distance. My pulse spiked. I turned sharply, scanning the dim rows. Hello? My voice sounded too loud, too shaky. No answer, just silence. I fumbled with my car door, finally managing to yank it open. That's when a man's voice came from the shadows. Calm, almost casual. You dropped this. I froze. He stepped forward, holding my wallet. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even realized it was missing. Thanks, I said, trying to sound steady. But every instinct screamed at me to get inside. Lock the doors. Drive. Something about the way he smiled. It wasn't friendly. It was knowing. He extended the wallet, but didn't step closer. Just waited. I forced myself to take it, my fingers brushing his for half a second. Cold. Too cold. You really shouldn't leave things behind like that, he said softly. It makes you vulnerable. My throat tightened. I've got it, thanks. I climbed in, slammed the lock. He didn't move. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring as I fumbled to start the car. Finally, the engine roared to life. I pulled out fast, tires squealing as I sped toward the exit. In the rearview mirror, I caught one last glimpse of him, still standing there, still smiling. When I got home, I tried to shake it off. Told myself he was just some guy trying to be helpful, that I was overreacting. But then I opened my wallet. Everything was there: credit cards, cash, ID, nothing missing. But tucked into the billfold was a small folded note. I unfolded it with trembling hands. Just 3 words, scrawled in uneven handwriting. I found you. My heart stopped. I dropped the wallet like it burned me. My apartment suddenly felt too quiet, too exposed. I rushed to check the lock's front door, windows, balcony, all secure, but my skin crawled. He knew where I lived. He had to. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the old pipes made me jolt awake, convinced he was inside. At 3 a.m., I heard a faint knock at my door. Just one, not repeated, soft, almost playful. I held my breath, too terrified to move. Minutes stretched into hours before dawn finally broke. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was just paranoia. Maybe some sick joke, maybe nothing at all. But when I left for the grocery store that afternoon, I noticed something scratched into the dust on my car's rear window. Careless. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the bags. Someone had been there, touched my car, knew I'd see it. I wanted to tell someone: my sister, my mom, even the police, but what would I say? A stranger returned my wallet and left me a creepy note. They'd think I was being dramatic. So I stayed quiet. I convinced myself I could handle it. That was my second mistake. Because the next night, when I came home, the note wasn't in my wallet anymore. It was on my pillow. The sight of that note lying on my pillow nearly made me collapse. My apartment door had still been locked when I came home. Nothing seemed out of place, and yet someone had been inside. I stood there, frozen in the doorway, clutching my grocery bags until the handles cut into my palms. My first thought was that maybe I had dropped the note myself when I'd opened the wallet last night. That somehow it had ended up in the bedroom, but I knew the truth. I had left it on the kitchen counter, and now it was here. I dropped everything, bolted back into the hall, and called my sister. My voice shook so badly she could barely understand me. Jacob, what happened? What's wrong? Someone was in my apartment. What do you mean someone? Did you see them? I explained about the man in the garage, the wallet, the notes. She went silent. Then, in the voice she used when she was trying not to panic, she said, "You need to call the police. Now." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I kept thinking, what if they didn't believe me? What if they told me there was nothing they could do? Worse, what if they filed a report, and he found out? Instead, I called the building manager. He came up within minutes, keys jangling nervously in his hand. He swore no one had been inside, that the locks were untouched. He checked the windows, the fire escape, the balcony. All secure. Could have been a prank, he said with a shrug, but his eyes flicked toward the note still on my pillow. He didn't look convinced. I spent that night at my sister's, tried to laugh it off, to pretend I was overreacting. But when I came back the next morning, something new was waiting. A Polaroid photo taped to my front door. It was me, taken from across the street while I was unlocking my apartment the day before. I ripped it down, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. My hands shook as I tore it into pieces. But the damage was already done. Whoever this was, he wasn't just following me, he was watching me, studying me, playing with me. The police suddenly didn't feel like such a bad idea. I picked up the phone, ready to dial. But then I remembered my sister's words from last night. Don't mess up Mom's birthday dinner. It was that evening. I couldn't ruin it. Not for her. Not for Mom. They didn't deserve to have my paranoia overshadow everything. So I went. At the restaurant, I plastered on a smile and pretended everything was fine. My mom laughed. My sister teased me about still being single. And for a few hours, I almost believed I was safe. Until I glanced toward the window. Across the street, under the dim glow of a street lamp, a man was standing. Same height. Same build as the one from the garage. Hands in his pockets. Watching. I froze. Fork halfway to my mouth. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Didn't do anything but stare. Jacob? My mom asked. You okay? I forced a laugh. Forced myself to look away. Yeah. Just thought I saw someone I knew. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. When we left, the street lamp was empty. No one there. But when I got home, another Polaroid was waiting. This one slid under my door. A photo of me at the restaurant, sitting with my family. My hands trembled so badly I dropped it. He hadn't just followed me there. He'd been inside, close enough to take that picture without any of us noticing. I called the police, finally. An officer came out, looked at the photos, listened to my story. He nodded, took notes, promised they'd keep an eye on things. But I could see it in his eyes. He thought I was exaggerating, maybe even imagining half of it. After he left, I double-checked the locks again, pushed furniture in front of the door, sat on the couch with a baseball bat in my hands, heart racing at every sound. Sometime after midnight, I must have dozed off. I woke to the faintest creak of floorboards. My blood turned to ice. I wasn't alone. I tightened my grip on the bat, barely breathing. And then, in the glow of the streetlight seeping through the curtains, I saw it. Another note, placed neatly on the coffee table in front of me, while I'd been sleeping. Too easy. I stared at that note until my vision blurred. My skin crawled with the realization that he had been here, inches from me, while I slept on the couch with a bat in my hands. He could have hurt me, killed me, and instead he left a message. Too easy. It wasn't about stealing or breaking in anymore. This was a game, and I was the prize. I didn't go back to sleep. I sat there all night, shaking, waiting for dawn. As soon as the sun rose, I packed a bag and drove to my sister's. I didn't tell her everything. I couldn't. Just said my apartment was freaking me out, and I needed a few nights away. She welcomed me in, no questions asked. But that first evening, when I went to grab something from my bag, I froze. Inside, between my clothes, was another Polaroid. This time it was of me, curled up on the couch, asleep, with the bat across my lap. My sister saw my face pale and asked what was wrong. I shoved the photo deep into the bag and forced a smile. Nothing. Just tired. But inside I was unraveling. How had he gotten into my apartment while I was there? How had he slipped into my locked car to plant that picture in my bag? Every detail of my life felt penetrated, compromised. The next day I tried to take control. I installed new locks on my apartment, ordered cameras online, bought pepper spray. Small things, but they made me feel like I was doing something. That night, I went back to check on the apartment. Just walking down the hallway made my skin prickle. When I opened the door, everything looked normal. Too normal, until I stepped into the bedroom. On the mirror, written in red lipstick were the words, "Smile for me." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't own red lipstick. I stumbled back, clutching my phone, ready to call 911, but then something stopped me. The reflection in the mirror. In the corner of the room, half hidden by shadows, a figure was standing, tall, motionless, watching me through the glass. I spun around, but the corner was empty. No one there. The window was locked. My stomach twisted. Had I really seen him? Or was my mind breaking under the pressure? I fled, slamming the door behind me, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. I drove until I ended up at a cheap motel on the edge of town, checked in under a fake name, sat in the room with the curtains shut, the TV blaring, just to drown out the silence. But silence wasn't the problem. At 2 a.m. I heard it again, footsteps in the hallway. Slow, dragging, stopping right outside my door. I held my breath, clutching the pepper spray. A shadow passed under the crack of the door, just one, lingering, then moving away. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I checked out, convinced I'd been paranoid. But when I went to grab my keys from the nightstand, I froze. A Polaroid was waiting there. Me, sleeping in the motel bed. My chest clenched. I couldn't breathe. He'd been in here. In my room. With me. I rushed outside, scanning the parking lot. Empty. Just rows of cars baking in the morning sun. My hands shook so badly I dropped the photo. I realized then I couldn't keep running. Wherever I went, he followed. He knew my every move, like he was inside my head. So I went to the police again. This time with the photos, the notes, everything. The officer flipped through them, his frown deepening. Finally, he said, "Do you have any enemies? Ex-boyfriends? Co-workers? Anyone with a grudge?" "No," I whispered. No one, he sighed, promised to open an investigation, and told me to be careful, as if I wasn't already jumping at every shadow. That night, I went back to my sister's. She made tea, tried to distract me with gossip, but I could barely focus. My ears strained at every sound outside. Around midnight, I excused myself and went to the guest room, closed the blinds, locked the door, sat on the bed, phone in hand. That's when it buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it, blood running cold. It was a picture of me, right now, sitting on the bed, holding my phone. The caption beneath it, told you. Too easy. The phone slipped from my hand. My stomach lurched as I stared at the screen, at the image of myself, sitting exactly where I was right now. The curtains drawn, the door locked, and still he was watching. I leapt to the window, yanking the blinds open, but the street outside was empty. A lone streetlight flickered, casting long shadows across the pavement. No movement, no figure with a camera, nothing. My sister's voice called from the living room. Jacob, you okay? I forced my voice steady. Yeah, just dropped my phone. I didn't tell her. I couldn't drag her into this. But when I turned back toward the bed, the phone buzzed again. Another photo, this time of my sister in the kitchen, pouring tea. The caption, she looks like you. Wonder if she's easier. A cold shiver ripped through me. He wasn't just after me anymore. He was watching her too, targeting her. I slipped into the hallway, trying not to make a sound, and checked the locks on every door and window. They were secure. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. When I went back to the guest room, another text was waiting. Knock knock. Then, almost instantly after, there was an actual knock at the door. Soft, 2 taps. My sister looked up from the couch. Did you invite someone over? I shook my head, throat too tight to speak. She frowned, stood, and started toward the door. I grabbed her arm. Don't. The knock came again, louder this time. Who is it? My sister called, her voice shaking only slightly. Silence. Then the sound of footsteps retreating down the hall. We waited. Minutes ticked by. Finally, my sister whispered, should we call the police? I wanted to, but I also knew what they'd say. No evidence, no suspect, just paranoia. They'd already treated me like I was imagining things. So instead, I stayed awake all night again. Every sound sent me spinning, convinced he was inside. But dawn came without incident. And the next evening, I was unraveling. My hands shook constantly. My chest tightened every time I heard footsteps behind me. I kept imagining him standing just out of sight, smiling. And then, as if to confirm my worst fears, I found another Polaroid on the doorstep when I went to get the mail. This one froze my blood. It was of me and my sister asleep on the couch, taken from inside the living room. I dropped it, my hands trembling so violently I couldn't pick it back up. My sister found me standing there, pale and shaking. What is it? I couldn't hide it this time. I showed her the photo. Her face went white. Oh my God. She snatched up her phone, called the police, demanded they come immediately. And this time, maybe because she sounded so certain, they sent a pair of officers. They searched the apartment top to bottom, checked the locks, the windows, the vents, found nothing. One officer even cracked a smile as he handed back the photo. Looks like someone's playing a prank on you. Maybe a neighbor? A prank? I snapped. Someone was in this apartment while we were asleep. Look at the angle, he was standing right over us. The officer's smile faltered, but he didn't argue, just promised to make a report, and suggested we stay somewhere else for a few days. So we did. We checked into a hotel downtown, the kind with cameras in every hallway. A front desk staffed 24/7. It felt safer. For the first time in weeks, I thought maybe we could breathe. That illusion shattered on the second night. When we came back from dinner, the door to our hotel room was unlocked. My sister swore she'd locked it. I knew I had checked too. We entered cautiously, the air thick with dread. Nothing looked disturbed, but lying on the bedspread was another Polaroid. This one made me sick. It was of me and my sister at dinner, sitting in the restaurant, laughing, completely unaware. On the back of the photo, scrawled in that same jagged handwriting, were 4 words. You can't escape me. My sister broke down, sobbing. I held her, my own body trembling as much as hers. We were trapped in someone's twisted obsession, and no matter where we went, he followed. That night, I finally admitted the truth to myself. This wasn't random. This wasn't just some stalker getting thrills. He wanted something more, something personal. But what? And why me? I didn't sleep. I couldn't. And just before dawn, when exhaustion finally pulled me under, I woke to a sound that froze my blood. A whisper, right outside the hotel door. Jacob. The whisper slithered through the crack beneath the hotel door, barely audible yet unmistakable. My name, drawn out like a taunt. I sat upright in bed, heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. My sister stared beside me. What is it? She mumbled, half asleep. I pressed a finger to my lips, motioning for silence. Then we both heard it again. Jacob. She clutched my arm, her nails digging into my skin. I crept toward the door, every nerve screaming not to. I pressed my ear against it. Nothing, just silence. Then suddenly 3 sharp knocks. I stumbled back, adrenaline flooding me. My sister whispered, call the police. but my phone slipped in my shaking hands. I finally managed to dial, my voice breaking as I begged the dispatcher to send someone. By the time the officers arrived, the hallway was empty. They checked the security cameras, rewound the footage. What we saw made my stomach twist. At 4:03 a.m., a figure appeared in the hallway outside our room. Tall hood pulled over his head, moving with deliberate calm. He walked right up to our door, stood there, leaned down, pressing his mouth close to the seam where the wood met the frame, and whispered. But the most chilling part wasn't the whisper. It was when he looked directly into the camera, straight at it, straight at us, and smiled. The officers froze the footage, but the hood shadowed his face too much to make out details. No clear ID. They promised to increase patrols, told us to change rooms, but their reassurances felt thin, hollow. Because in that smile, I saw something terrifying. He knew exactly what he was doing, knew we were watching, and he wanted us too. We moved to another room, higher floor, end of the hallway. I barely left the bed the entire day, too afraid to step outside. My sister tried to be strong, but I caught her crying in the bathroom. That night, I dozed off despite myself, and woke to another photo slid under the door. This one wasn't of me, it was of my sister. She was sitting on the hotel balcony earlier that afternoon, scrolling on her phone. The angle was wrong, too close. It hadn't been taken from the street or another room. Someone had been on our balcony. I rushed outside, flung the curtains open. The view looked normal, the air quiet, but the knowledge sat like poison in my stomach. He had been here, again. The next morning, I told my sister we had to leave. Not just the hotel, not just the city. We had to disappear. We packed our things and drove. No destination, just miles of highway stretching under the tires. Every car behind us felt like it might be him. Every stop at a gas station, every glance from a stranger made my chest tighten. Hours later, we ended up in a rural Airbnb tiny cabin in the woods. No neighbors, no cameras, just isolation. My sister hated it. She wanted people around, protection. But I thought maybe, just maybe, the distance would keep us safe. That night, the silence of the forest was almost comforting. No footsteps, no knocks, no whispers, just wind in the trees. I almost believed we'd escaped, until I opened the fridge the next morning. Inside, taped to the milk carton, was a Polaroid. Me and my sister, asleep in the cabin bed, taken while the door was locked, while we thought we were finally safe. On the bottom, written in jagged ink, "Running makes it fun." I dropped the carton, milk spilling across the floor. My sister came running, saw the photo, and collapsed into a chair. "How does he keep finding us?" she whispered, voice breaking. "How?" I didn't know. The thought burned through my mind, relentless. Did he have a tracker on my car? On my phone? On me? That afternoon, I tore the car apart, searching every crevice, every corner. And then I found it. A small black device, no bigger than a lighter, tucked beneath the back bumper. A tracker. My blood ran cold. He had known every move, every stop, every hiding place. Because he'd been following us the entire time. I smashed the device with a rock, hands trembling with fury. For the first time in weeks, I felt a surge of power. Maybe this would finally stop him. But that night, as we sat by the fireplace, another text came through. A photo of me holding the smashed tracker. The caption, "Clever, but not enough." My sister broke down completely. She sobbed into my chest, whispering over and over, "We're never getting away. Never." And for the first time, I started to believe her. Because if he could follow us here, track us even after I destroyed the device, then he wasn't just some random stalker. He was closer than I realized. Too close. The fire crackled in the cabin fireplace, but its warmth couldn't touch the chill that ran through me. My sister had finally cried herself to sleep, but I stayed awake, staring at the shadows that danced across the wooden walls. Closer than I realized. The words echoed in my head, heavy, suffocating. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps on the porch. Slow, measured, deliberate. I gripped the fireplace poker, heart pounding, and crept toward the door. The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in. Then came the soft scrape of something sliding under the door. Another Polaroid. This one was different. It wasn't of me, or my sister. It was of my childhood home. The house my mother still lived in, scrawled across the bottom. Maybe I should visit her next. My chest seized. Panic ripped through me. I shook my sister awake, thrust the photo into her hands. Her face drained of color. "No, not Mom." I grabbed my keys, adrenaline overriding exhaustion. "We're leaving. Now." The drive back into the city felt endless. Headlights cutting through empty highways. Every car that appeared in the rearview made me sweat, convinced it was him. When we finally pulled up outside Mom's house, I nearly collapsed with relief. Her lights were on, the curtains drawn tight. She opened the door in her robe, confusion on her face. "What on earth are you two doing here at 3 in the morning?" I pushed past her, scanning every corner of the house. "We think someone's after us. You're not safe here." She frowned, clearly thinking we were overreacting, until my sister showed her the Polaroid. Mom's hands trembled as she held it. Her voice dropped. "You need to tell me everything." So we did. The man in the garage, the notes, the photos, the whispers. Every detail spilled out, raw and frantic. When we finished, Mum looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not fear, not disbelief, but something darker. She sat down slowly, hands folded in her lap. Jacob, there's something I never told you. The air in the room shifted. My sister and I exchanged a look. What do you mean? I asked. Her eyes glistened. Years ago, before you were born, your father, he had a brother, a twin. I froze. A twin? You never mentioned. Because he was dangerous, she whispered. Unstable. He hurt people, stalked them, played with them. Your father cut all ties, and when he disappeared, we hoped, he was gone for good. My blood ran cold. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The smile in the garage, the obsession, the way he always knew where I was. It wasn't random. It wasn't chance. It was family. My mother's voice trembled. If it's him, he's not going to stop. Not until a sudden crash cut her off. Glass shattering in the kitchen. We all froze. Then came the sound of slow, heavy footsteps crossing the linoleum. My sister clamped a hand over her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Mama whispered, "Go, upstairs now." We bolted, hearts pounding as the footsteps drew closer. I grabbed my sister's hand, pulling her up the stairs 2 at a time. Behind us, the kitchen door creaked open, followed by a low, chilling laugh. We locked ourselves in my old bedroom. My sister sobbed quietly. Mum pressed her back against the door, and I searched the room for anything I could use as a weapon. My hands landed on an old baseball bat leaning in the corner. Then the footsteps started up the stairs. Slow, deliberate. Each creak of the wood felt like a countdown. Mum whispered, "He's playing with us." The knob rattled. Once, twice, then stopped. Silence. My chest heaved. Sweat poured down my face. I raised the bat, ready for the door to burst open. But it didn't. Instead, a piece of paper slid under the crack. I bent down with trembling hands and picked it up. On it was a single sentence scrawled in jagged ink. Family always finds family. I dropped it, my visions swimming with terror. And then, from just outside the door, his voice came. Low, calm, terrifyingly familiar. "Open up, Jacob. I just want to talk." His voice was muffled by the door, but it slid under my skin like a blade. Calm, patient, too patient. My sister shook her head violently, mouthing, "Don't." Mom pressed her back harder against the door, as if her body alone could hold him out. The knob rattled again, harder this time. My heart thundered in my chest. I gripped the baseball bat so tight my knuckles burned. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, my voice cracking. A pause, then that laugh again, low and uneven. "Because you're mine. You always were." I froze. The words were twisted, but there was a strange familiarity in them. Something that made my stomach turn. Mom's voice broke through the silence. "Leave him alone, Daniel." Daniel. The name hit me like a punch. My uncle. My father's twin. The one Mom said was gone. I stumbled back, my legs weak. My sister clutched my arm, whispering frantically, "What does he want? What does he mean?" But I had no answer. Outside the door, his voice came again, softer now, almost coaxing. "You've lived a life that should have been mine, Jacob. The family, the home, the name. They erased me, but I never forgot. And now it's time you understand what it feels like to lose everything." My throat went dry. He wasn't just stalking me for sport. This was personal. The sound of heavy footsteps retreated down the hallway. We held our breath, waiting. Then a sharp shatter of glass echoed from downstairs. "He's breaking the windows," Mom whispered, her face pale. We stayed frozen in that room for what felt like hours, but it was probably minutes. Finally, the house fell silent. When we crept out, the downstairs looked like a war zone. Curtains ripped down, glass littering the floor. Another Polaroid taped to the fridge. This one was of me as a child, playing in the yard, smiling. My sister picked it up with shaking hands. "How does he even have this?" Mom's voice cracked. "He was there. He must have been watching all along." I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. My whole life, every memory, suddenly felt tainted. Was he there when I learned to ride a bike? When I blew out birthday candles? When Dad taught me how to swim? The thought made me sick. That night, we didn't sleep. Every creak of the house made us jolt awake. Every gust of wind through the broken windows made my heart race. At dawn, I made a decision. I couldn't keep running. I couldn't let him control every corner of our lives. "I'm going to end this," I told my sister. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You can't. He's insane. He'll kill you. Then at least it'll be over," I whispered. I didn't tell her my full plan. Only that I needed bait. So that evening, I left the lights on in Mom's house. Curtains open, shadows moving like we were all home. Then I slipped out the back, bat in hand, and hid in the shed. Hours passed, my breath fogged in the cold air. Crickets chirped. My nerves stretched thinner with each passing minute. And then I heard it, the faint crunch of footsteps on gravel. He moved slowly, circling the house like a predator. My heart pounded as I peered through a crack in the shed wall. There he was, tall, hood pulled low, but I caught glimpses of his face in the glow of the street lamp. My face, or close enough. The same jawline, the same eyes. A twisted mirror of my father. He slipped closer to the house, his head tilting as if he could already picture us inside. I stepped out from the shadows, bat raised. Enough! He froze, then turned slowly, a grin spreading across his face. There you are. We stared at each other across the yard, the air electric. For a moment, it felt like looking into a warped reflection of myself, same blood, same lineage, but everything bent and broken. You ruined my life, he said softly. Now I'll ruin yours. And then he lunged. I swung the bat with every ounce of strength I had. It connected with his arm, the crack echoing through the night. He stumbled but didn't fall. His other hand shot out, grabbing my throat. His grip was iron, cutting off my air. I gasped, vision blurring, but somehow swung again. This time the bat smashed against his ribs. He grunted, staggered, but his grip didn't loosen. The world tilted. My lungs screamed. My arms weakened. And then my sister's scream cut through the chaos. She was standing on the porch, holding Mom's old kitchen knife, her face pale but determined. Let him go, she shouted. Daniel turned, distracted for just a moment. Enough. I wrenched free and drove the bat into his knee. He collapsed with a howl of rage, the knife clattering from my sister's trembling hands. I grabbed it, raised it. My pulse thundered. One thrust and it would be over. But my hand shook violently. Could I do it? Could I end him? Daniel looked up at me, blood smeared across his mouth, and smiled. Do it, he whispered. Be like me. My chest heaved. My grip tightened. The knife hovered inches from his throat, and then headlights swept across the yard. A police siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. Daniel's smile widened. They'll never believe you. The sirens cut through the night, red and blue lights flickering across the shattered glass of Mum's house. I froze, knife still hovering at Daniel's throat. My chest heaved with each ragged breath. Behind me, my sister was crying, begging, Jacob, please don't. Daniel just kept smiling, blood running down his chin, his eyes glittering with something twisted. Go on, he whispered. Show them. Prove we're the same. I dropped the knife. It clattered against the gravel. My knees buckled and I stumbled back, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The police car screeched to a stop. 2 officers spilled out, weapons raised. Hands where we can see them. I raised mine, trembling. Daniel, still on the ground, did the same, his grin never faltering. He attacked me, I shouted. Daniel let out a hoarse laugh. Lies. Look at me, he broke my ribs, my arm. He's dangerous. The officers exchanged glances, uncertain. My sister rushed forward, sobbing. No, it's him. He's been stalking us for weeks. He's the one, please. You have to believe us. The older officer approached cautiously, cuffs in hand. Both of you, down on the ground, now. No, I cried, but before I could protest again, I was shoved face first into the dirt, cold metal snapping around my wrists. Beside me, Daniel chuckled as they cuffed him too. You see, he muttered. We're the same now. At the station, they separated us. Hours bled together as I tried to explain everything. The photos, the notes, the break-ins. My voice cracked, my words tumbling over each other in desperation. The detective across the table tapped his pen against a notepad. You're saying your uncle has been stalking you, but you never reported him until tonight. I did, I snapped. Twice. They dismissed it, said I was paranoid. But look, I slid the stack of Polaroids across the table with trembling hands. That's proof. He flipped through them slowly, too slowly, his face unreadable. We'll look into it, he said finally. That was it. We'll look into it. Meanwhile, Daniel was in the next room, spinning his story. I could hear muffled fragments through the wall, his calm voice, steady, convincing. My nephew has been unstable, paranoid, attacked me tonight unprovoked. Hours later, they released us both. Mom's voice broke when she realized. You're just letting him walk. The detective shrugged. We don't have enough to hold him. Not yet. We'll keep an eye on him. Daniel walked out of the station with that same grin, his arm in a sling. He turned just before getting into a cab and mouthed 2 words at me. Told you. I nearly lunged at him, but my sister held me back, her grip iron despite her shaking hands. Don't. That's what he wants. Back home, the 3 of us collapsed into silence. The house still reeked of broken glass and fear. I paced the living room, my body buzzing with rage. He's not going to stop, I muttered. You know that, right? He'll come back, again and again. Until what? My sister whispered. I couldn't answer, because the truth was there was only one way this ended. That night I barely slept. Every sound outside set me on edge. At one point, I thought I saw a figure at the edge of the yard, standing still, watching. But when I blinked, it was gone. The next morning, Mom found another envelope shoved through the mail slot. Her hands shook as she handed it to me. Inside were more Polaroids. Me, my sister, Mom, all taken from different angles, different times. Some inside the house, some outside, some while we slept, and one more. This one was of Dad's gravestone. Fresh flowers laid neatly at its base. The message was clear. He wasn't just haunting us. He was desecrating everything we loved. My sister's voice cracked. We have to leave. We can't stay here. But where could we go? He always found us. Always. Later that evening, while Mom tried to comfort my sister, I went out to the shed. My hands found the baseball bat again, but this time I noticed something taped to the handle. A small scrap of paper. "You'll never be rid of me, unless you become me." I dropped the bat like it was on fire, my stomach churning, because deep down, I knew he was right. The police wouldn't save us. Running wouldn't save us. It was him, or me. The line blurred in my mind as I stared out into the dark yard, the night pressing in heavy around me. And then, faint but undeniable, from somewhere in the shadows, his voice drifted through the trees. "Jacob." The voice coiled through the trees, soft but sharp enough to slice the night. My grip tightened around the shed door frame. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stepped outside, scanning the yard. Moonlight spilled over the grass, silvering the broken glass still scattered from the windows. Nothing moved, no shadows out of place. But I knew he was there, watching, always watching. I forced my voice steady. "What do you want from me?" Silence. Then a low laugh carried on the wind. "To finish what your father couldn't." My chest seized. Anger surged through me, cutting through the fear. "He left you behind for a reason. And look where that got him," Daniel snarled back, "rotting in the ground. While I'm still here. While I'll always be here." The words chilled me to the bone. I stumbled back into the house, slamming the door. Mom and my sister rushed in from the kitchen, their faces pale. "What is it?" My sister whispered. "He's outside," I said, my voice shaking. "He knows we're awake." Mom grabbed my hands, gripping them tight. "Listen to me, Jacob. He feeds on fear. The more scared you are, the more power he has over you. You can't let him win." But how could I not be scared? He knew every step we took, every place we tried to hide. And the police? They'd already proven useless. That night, none of us slept. We sat in the living room with the lights blazing, waiting. But he didn't come in. He didn't knock, didn't whisper. And somehow that was worse. The waiting, the silence, the knowledge that he was out there planning. The next morning, I found another envelope on the porch. Inside was a single Polaroid. Me, standing at the shed door last night, bathed in moonlight. His caption scrawled across the bottom. "Almost had you." I slammed my fist against the doorframe, the wood splintering beneath my hand. My sister flinched. "Jacob, stop. That's what he wants. He wants you angry." But I was beyond angry. I was consumed. The hours crawled by, heavy and suffocating. Mum tried to keep us calm, cooking breakfast we didn't touch, making tea that went cold. My sister barely left my side, her eyes darting to every shadow. By evening, I made my decision. I couldn't keep waiting for him to strike again. I had to end it. I told them I was going to the store. Instead, I drove to the hardware shop across town, bought a padlock, heavy chains, and gasoline. The cashier gave me a strange look, but didn't ask questions. When I came back, my sister was waiting at the door, arms crossed. "Where were you?" "Preparing," I said flatly. She paled. "Preparing for what?" "For him." Her voice cracked. "Jacob, don't." But I couldn't listen, because deep down, I knew the truth. He wasn't going to stop. The only way this ended was if I made it end. That night, I set the trap. I left the back door unlocked, just enough to tempt him. I lit a single lamp in the kitchen, casting long shadows across the floor. Then I hid in the hallway, bat in hand, chains coiled at my feet. Hours passed. My eyelids drooped. My grip loosened. And then the creak of the back door opening. My heart seized. I held my breath, every muscle tense. Footsteps, slow, heavy, moving into the kitchen. I waited until his shadow stretched across the hall. Then I swung. The bat connected with his shoulder. He staggered, but his hand shot out, grabbing my arm with terrifying strength. His face emerged from the shadows, twisted and grinning. "Finally," he hissed. "You're learning." We crashed to the floor, grappling. His breath was hot against my ear, his laughter low and feral. I slammed the bat against his ribs again and again, but he didn't let go. My sister screamed from the living room. "Jacob, stay back." I roared, fighting with every ounce of strength. Somehow, I managed to loop the chain around his arm. He thrashed, snarling, but I pulled tighter, wrapping until the metal bit into his skin. "You think this will stop me?" he spat. "I am you. You can't chain yourself." His words cut deeper than the blows. For a moment I hesitated, saw my own face in his. The same blood, the same shadow. But then I thought of my sister, my mom, every sleepless night, every Polaroid, every whispered threat, and I pulled the chain tighter. He howled, thrashing, but the chain held. I dragged him toward the shed, his boots scraping against the floor. My sister sobbed, begging me to stop, but I didn't. I locked him inside, the padlock snapping shut. His fists pounded against the wood, his voice booming. "You can't keep me here. I'll always find you. Always." The sound shook me to my core, but for the first time in weeks, the house was ours. Silence returned. I sank to my knees in the yard, the cold air biting my skin, my chest heaving with exhaustion. My sister crouched beside me, tears streaking her face. "Jacob, what are you going to do?" I stared at the shed. His pounding hadn't stopped. His voice still echoed, promises of what he'd do when he got free. "I don't know," I whispered, but the truth was already clawing at me. There was only one way to make sure he never came back, and it terrified me. The pounding from the shed grew louder, each thud reverberating through the night like a drumbeat. His voice carried through the wood, taunting, mocking, promising. You'll never keep me here, Jacob. You'll never be free until you do what needs to be done. I sat in the yard, my chest heaving, sweat mixing with the chill night air. My sister crouched beside me, her eyes red, her hands trembling. Jacob, she whispered, we can call the police. Let them take him. I shook my head slowly, staring at the locked shed. They'll let him go again. You saw it. They don't believe us. He'll come back. He always comes back. Mom appeared at the doorway, her face pale, her robe pulled tight around her. She looked from me to the shed, then back again. Don't do it, son. If you cross that line, you'll never come back from it. Her words hit like stones, but so did the memories. Every Polaroid, every note, the whisper through the hotel door, my sister's sobs in the night, the way he'd threatened Mom, how he desecrated Dad's grave. I stood slowly, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I can't let him keep destroying us. I grabbed the gasoline can I bought from the hardware store. My sister gasped, clutching my arm. Jacob, no, please. But my hands moved on their own, unscrewing the cap, the sharp chemical smell filling the air. My body shook as I splashed it against the shed's wooden walls. Inside, Daniel laughed. Yes, finally you understand. Do it, Jacob. Be who you really are. His voice was manic, triumphant, as if this was what he'd wanted all along, to push me into the same darkness that consumed him. I struck a match. The flame flickered, small, fragile, yet so powerful. My sister screamed, grabbing at my hand, but I pulled away. My heart thundered. My mind spun. One flick of the wrist and it would all be over. But then I heard another voice. Not Daniel's. My wife's. From years ago. Faint but clear. Promise me you'll protect them, Jacob. No matter what. I froze. My grip loosened. The match trembled in my fingers. If I did this, would I really be protecting them? Or would I just be giving Daniel what he wanted, proving that I was no better? Tears blurred my vision. I dropped the match, crushing it under my heel. No, I whispered, my voice raw. I'm not like you. Daniel roared with fury, slamming against the shed walls so hard the wood creaked. Coward, you'll regret this. You'll never escape me. I stepped back, chest heaving, the gasoline dripping into the soil at my feet. My sister sobbed with relief, wrapping her arms around me. Mum stood frozen in the doorway, tears streaming silently down her face. Minutes later, flashing lights filled the yard. The police had come maybe because of my sister's frantic call, maybe because a neighbor finally reported the noise. They dragged Daniel from the shed, still screaming, still laughing. Jacob, he shouted as they hauled him away. We're the same. We'll always be the same. The words clung to me like poison. Days passed, then weeks. They said he'd been transferred to a psychiatric facility, that he'd be evaluated, that we didn't need to worry anymore. But I did worry, because his voice still echoed in my head at night, because every creak of the house still made me sit up, convinced he was there, because sometimes, in the mirror, I caught glimpses of his grin in my own reflection. Life went on. Mum replaced the windows. My sister tried to return to work. I told myself we were safe now, but deep down, I knew safety was just an illusion. One night, months later, I woke from a restless sleep and padded into the kitchen for water. On the counter sat a single Polaroid. Not Daniel, not my sister, not Mum, me, taken while I slept, just hours before. And on the bottom, scrawled in jagged ink, did you really think it was over? My blood ran cold. My knees buckled. Because in that moment, I understood the truth. It would never be over. That was the night I realized something final, something that still haunts me. You don't escape men like him. You just learn to live with the shadow they leave behind. And that shadow was already inside me. In the end, survival changes everyone.